850,000 Bitcoin, about $85 billion lost at today's value. The scary part is, nobody even knew when this money was lost, because this wasn't a one-time event, but the story of a silent leak that lasted for years. And this story begins with the card game.
The year's 2006. Bitcoin doesn't even exist yet. People on the internet are playing Magic the Gathering. Some cards are so valuable that they are bought and sold like collector's items in real life. A developer named Jed McCaleb creates a website. It's a simple exchange site for trading these cards. Magic the Gathering Online Exchange, or MTGOX. Now, here's the question. How does a card game site turn into the center of an $85 billion disaster?
The calendar shows 2010. Bitcoin takes the stage. But there is a huge problem. There is nowhere to buy or sell this digital currency. Jed McCaleb turned his card trading site into a Bitcoin exchange. The logic is simple. There is already a trading system. You just replace the cards with Bitcoin. The site grows unexpectedly, but Jed thinks he cannot handle it. The date is March 2011. Mark Karpelès, a developer living in Paris, buys Mt. Gox. He becomes the new boss of the world's largest Bitcoin exchange. But what is Mark actually buying? The user base, wallet infrastructure, customer funds, and the code base. Everything passes into his hands at once. And this inheritance is not clean. Security layers are weak, the code is messy, and the architecture is fragile. But Mark either doesn't see this or doesn't care. He moves to Tokyo. Mt. Gox is now his empire. And it turns into a one-man system.
Within a few years, Mt. Gox becomes the place where 70% of all Bitcoin transactions in the world take place. But there is no big team behind this massive structure. No security department, no risk team. Mark writes the code, Mark manages the servers, and Mark has access to the Bitcoin wallets. A billion-dollar system is tied to a single point. Why is this dangerous? Because the single point of failure kicks in. If that point crashes, everything crashes.
In 2011, Mt. Gox's servers are hacked. The master wallet file holding the Bitcoins sits on the server like an ordinary file. There is no strong encryption, nor is there serious access control. The key is right there. Now, this part is very important. The hackers don't take all the money at once, because that would be noticed. Instead, small amounts are withdrawn over a long period, silently, slowly, like a vampire attack.
Mt. Gox doesn't notice this. Why? Because they don't check the blockchain to see how many Bitcoins are actually in the vault. The blockchain is the distributed ledger. It is the source of truth. But Mt. Gox doesn't look there. They look at their internal system. The ledger looks full while the vault has already started to empty. The theft lasted for years, from 2011 to 2013, little by little, silently. The exchange was already bankrupt, but it kept trading like a zombie.
And right at this point, another question arises. Why did the Bitcoin price rise so fast in 2013 while this was happening? The answer? Willy and Markus. These were buying bots created within Mt. Gox's own system. These bots were running inside Mt. Gox, and the money they used wasn't real. They had fake balances created within the system. So they were buying Bitcoin with money that didn't exist, constantly, without looking at the price.
Why? Because there was a giant hole in Mt. Gox's vault. The Bitcoins lost to years of theft still appeared to exist on paper. Willy and Markus were deployed to cover this gap, but they also pushed the market up. Think of it like this. You are at an auction. The same person keeps raising their hand. They have no money, but everyone thinks if someone is buying at this price, it must be valuable. While Mt. Gox was trying to put out the fire inside, it was setting off fireworks outside.
According to the Willy report data, these bots artificially carried the Bitcoin price to the peak of $1,000. They bought approximately 650,000 Bitcoin in total. The exchange was effectively bankrupt, but the market perception was kept alive. It was one of the biggest financial ethics scandals in history.
Then, February 2014, the system cracks. Withdrawals are stopped. The excuse? Transaction malleability. A hacker wanting to withdraw Bitcoin from Mt. Gox would create a request. Mt. Gox would send the transaction to the network. The money would actually leave, but the hacker would change the identity of this transaction. Mt. Gox wasn't looking at the chain, it was just tracking this ID. When the ID changed, the system thought transaction failed. Mt. Gox would send the same money again, the hacker would get the money. But the critical point is this: the amount that could be stolen this way was only a few hundred Bitcoin. Transaction malleability was not the cause of the huge loss, it was just an excuse. The real disaster was the management that didn't look at the chain for years and entrusted the vault to a single person.
In February 2014, it was declared that 850,000 Bitcoins were lost. The crypto world was experiencing an apocalypse. But the absurd detail came a bit later. Mark announced that he found exactly 200,000 Bitcoins forgotten in an old wallet. That's $20 billion in today's value. Mt. Gox didn't even know what it owned. This destruction made the security rules we accept as standard today mandatory. Cold wallets, meaning offline storage. Multi-signature systems where money cannot move without the approval of more than one person, and asset segregation, keeping customer funds separate from the company's funds. These practices became a necessity after Mt. Gox. The lasting effect of the Mt. Gox event was this: the phrase, "not your keys, not your coins," turned from a slogan into a survival rule. If you entrust your private key to someone else, and that person disappears, your money disappears too. But there was an ironic side to it. Bitcoin emerged from this trauma not by disappearing, but by proving why decentralization is vital.
Mt. Gox closed down, but the market left still lives on. Let's clarify the lessons. If you don't have the key, the money isn't yours. If you don't look at the chain, you can't see the truth. Anything you centralize breaks at a single point. And the purpose of crypto is not quick wealth, but not needing to trust anyone. There is much more chaos to tell, from the dark markets of Silk Road to the shiny collapse of FTX, from the algorithmic suicide of Terra Luna to the leveraged massacre of Three Arrows Capital. Stories don't remain unfinished on StickChain. Subscribe.